Hello everyone and welcome to yet another video of Drones Visual. Today I bring you yet another detailed quality review about a product that is not only going to be useful to people in the RC hobby or community, but to people in general dealing with batteries. And I'm talking of course about the latest balance charger by ToolkitRc. So this one right here is the M6DAC balance charger, and it's one of their latest releases. Now you probably noticed that balance chargers have gone a really long way since the times of the iMacs, at least in terms of appearance, yet a lot of the core functionality of the older balance charger remains in these new ones. Just the navigation, some power specs and so on have been upgraded and updated, but still the old ones are pretty cool. Nonetheless, there is obviously a tendency to push towards a more modernized look, better interfaces, and obviously to compact a lot of functions into smaller devices. And this is the product of that sort of tendency here, the balance charger by ToolkitRc, the M6DAC. Now, this balance charger, like I was saying to you, is going to be useful not only to people dealing with, in the RC hobby, but also to people in general. And today we're going to go ahead and take a deep dive, analyze all the functionality, the specs, how it can be used and so on, so you have a better understanding of whether this device is something that you're looking for, or perhaps you have an older balance charger like the iMacs and would like to upgrade, and perhaps you are considering whether one of these ones is worth it. So let's go ahead and take a deep dive and analyze this product, and we will see whether it's something for you or not. So let's do it.
Okay, let's now go ahead and take a closer look at what comes included with the box. First, we get this tiny small instructions manual. The manual is somewhat lacking and contains very little information. Next, we'll get a power supply cable. When purchasing the product, you can select on the product page the type of plug that you need, whether it's a US or a EU plug. Then we get a rather short USB cable. This USB cable has a standard USB connector on one side and a USB Type-C connector on the other side. Finally, we get the Toolkit M6DAC balance charger itself. This balance charger seems to have a decent build quality, although it would be actually very nice to get an aluminum body for better heat dissipation, but well, that could also impact the price of the product. Now let's quickly go cover the specifications. This device seems small, yet it weighs about 520 grams, so it will certainly sit firmly on your desk without moving. Here you can take a closer look at the dimensions. So it's a rather compact balance charger considering the weight. The charger is capable of accepting both DC and AC power. In AC, it can take from 100 to 240 volts at up to 2.5 amps, while in DC, it can take from 7 to 28 volts at up to 30 amps. Now, in terms of output, it will be able to output from 0.1 to 25 amps and up to a whopping 700 watt in synchronous mode. So this synchronous mode basically means using both channels to charge a single battery, right? In asynchronous mode, it will output from 0.1 to 15 amps at 350 watt per channel to charge basically two different batteries using basically two different channels. The M6DAC will be able to balance at up to 10 amps and do batteries from 2 cells to 6 cells. According to the manufacturer, the balance accuracy is rated at 0.0005 volts, which is pretty impressive. Now, when it comes to this charging, it will be capable of doing a max of 350 watt and 15 amps per channel in the recycle or regen mode that will charge one battery while discharging another one, while in the normal mode, it will be able to do 15 watt at 3 amps per channel. Now, the USB connector in the rear section will be able to output up to 65 watt at 3.25 amps and output up to 20 volts. And it's compatible, of course, with many of the fast charging protocols, including the popular PD and QC or quick charging protocols. Now let's take a look at the various parts of the device. So here on the front section, we will encounter a dial that will help us navigate throughout all the options of the device. This dial can also act as a button to access some of the settings as we will see later on. Right on top, we will see a button that can be used to exit the settings menu and other settings, and it can also be used to initiate charging or the charging process, and more on that later on. Now, the display on the front section is about 3.5 inches. Moving to the front section of the device, we will see two XT60 male connectors for the batteries and two balance ports. As previously mentioned, you can connect up to 6S batteries to this balance charger for or a balance port, basically, whatever you want. In between, there is a connector for a temperature sensor. I'm not sure at this point what sensors can be hooked here, but I will take a look at that later on. If we move to the rear section, we will then encounter an AC connector that will accept the voltage, like I mentioned before, from 110 to 220 and up to 2.5 amps now. Then on the other side, we will see an XT60 male connector in case you would like to use a battery as your source of power. The device will accept 7 to 28 volts at a maximum of 30 amps. Right on top of this XT60 connector, we will see a USB Type-C port. This port is capable of outputting, like I mentioned before as well, 20 volts at a max of 3.5 amps with a max power output of 65 watt. And the nice thing is that it's compatible with fast charging protocols such as QC and PD. To prevent overheating, the M6DAC has an internal cooling fan, or fans I should say, that release air using vents on the side of the device. These fans will only start once the device reaches certain temperature, and we will see that later on. Now, the bottom has some openings to facilitate the circulation of air into the device and some tiny rubbery mats to prevent it from sliding. Let's proceed to power this device. So to begin with, I will use AC power. I wish the device has some sort of switch to turn it on or off, yet it does not. It will turn on as soon as we connect the input cable to a power supply. Once connected, the screen will turn on and the device will boot. The M6DAC balance charger has an IPS 3.5 inch screen with a resolution of 320 by 480. It is not a touchscreen, so keep this in mind. The initial screen will provide us information such as a power selection indicated by P1 at the top left corner of the screen, followed by the power output in watts hour. Then to the right, we have another section showing the power output of the USB Type-C connector and, of course, the current. Finally, we will see the internal temperature of the system. The lower screen is divided in two sections. As there are two possible output channels, you will be able to see the battery voltage and current provided in amps, and below a list of the voltage and resistance of each cell in the battery. As I mentioned previously, you can use the scroll wheel to navigate throughout the different options. Just like the wheel of a mouse, this wheel can be pressed to access some of the options. Pressing the wheel from the main interface once will access a menu. This menu has a group of settings that can be adjusted, and these settings may vary a little bit depending on the battery type that you have selected. In this case, we have selected a Lipo battery, and the option we get to modify, or the options that we get to modify, are battery type, number of cells, mode, end voltage, and charging current. On the lower section, you can select either channel 1 or channel 2 using the scroll wheel. Once you are happy with your settings, you can initiate the charging process by pressing the wheel once or keeping the upper button pressed for a few seconds. In this case, if nothing happens, obviously because there's no battery, so the charging process is not initiated. Let's dive a little bit deeper into the main menu. So the first option in the menu is battery type. Here you can select from a variety of battery types. The first one being Lipo, which is the default type. Then we also get a lithium hydride, a lithium iron, a lithium ion, nickel metal hydride, and lead. Besides those, there are two other interesting categories or options. One says power, and this one will allow you to use this device as a power source for your notebook or some other devices. And at the very bottom, we will be able to see one that says UAV. This one will allow us to charge batteries of drones like the DJI ones, and it includes a few models such as the Mavic 2, the Phantom, Inspire, etc. So that is very nice if you own some of these drones and you need to charge those batteries. The next option in the menu is the cells option that you can use to select the number of cells of the battery. That obviously you need to know the number of cells in the battery that you're attempting to charge. So for LiPo batteries, this device will do a max of 6 cells. Yet, if you're trying to charge some other kind of battery, like lead batteries for example, the number of cells may be higher, reaching up to 10 cells or something like that. Now, the mode option lets us decide whether we would like to charge, discharge, or store a battery. So you can select either of these modes depending on what you're trying or attempting to do. Under the mode adjustment, we will see the N voltage. This setting can be used to regulate the max voltage per cell. Once the voltage is reached, the charging process will stop. The last option is the charge current that you can change to adjust the speed at which your battery charges. So for LiPos, you can select up to 15 amps here. If you were to select the power option instead of battery, this device would only show you an option to adjust the output voltage and current. Now let's go ahead and try charging a LiPo battery that I have over here. This is a 6S Lipo battery manufactured by Tattoo with a capacity of 1300 milliamps. As soon as we plug the XT60 connector, the device will right away read the internal voltage of the battery and show us the voltage right here on our screen. As you can see, the voltage of this battery is currently at 22.78 volts. Now, to balance charge this battery, we need to of course connect the balance port, which in this battery is rather short and it can be a little bit annoying. We need to make sure that the polarity is correct. You will be able to see the red cable in the battery, and that will be the positive one. As soon as we connect the balance connector, the device will read the voltage of each cell and display it below. Before charging the battery, you want to make sure that all the settings are right. So let's go ahead and select some of the settings. So battery type seems good. It is set to LiPo, and this is a 6S LiPo. Also, I want to charge it, of course. We will let the end current be about 4.2 volts per cell, but I would like to change the current and make it somewhere like 1.3 amps instead of 2. So let's go ahead and do that. Once all the settings seem right, we can either press the start button or keep the CH, the button that is labeled CH, pressed for a few seconds, and the device will notify us that the charging process is about to start. You can look at the pop-up window and confirm that everything is in order. In this case, the device is telling me that it will be charging using channel number 1 at up to 25.2 volts, which will be about 4.2 volts per cell, just as I have selected. After, we can press OK and the process will start. During the charging process, we can monitor the voltage per cell, the current and other settings. If we wish to charge our smartphone device or some other USB device during the charging process, this is no problem, we can do that. We will just hook it up to the USB Type-C port and the charging process will begin automatically. As mentioned before, this USB Type-C port is compatible with PD and QC and many other fast charging protocols, and as we can see now, my smartphone device is basically fast charging. Now the M6DAC is also showing me that it's using the PD protocol here, the fast charging protocol, to charge my smartphone device. As I mentioned before, the internal fans of the balance charger are not always active. I noticed that they tend to engage when the internal temperature of the device is about to reach 45 degrees. They are not super noisy, but you can certainly hear them. Now that we have examined the main menu, we can move into the system menu. The system menu can be accessed by keeping the scroll wheel pressed for a few seconds. The system menu is divided into a few settings. So we have here, as you can see, input settings, security settings, synchronous mode selection, continuous work, work completed, battery selection, backlight, buzzer, language, theme style, default, and finally the product ID. When we move to the input settings, we'll be able to see the power selection labeled as P1. Then when using a DC power source, you can alternate between P1 or P2. Here you can also adjust the power settings, the power type, max current, and voltage range according to your needs. The safety section will allow us to control the max allowable temperature inside the system and outside, and it also allows you to set the safe capacity. If we continue examining the menu, we will see the option called synchronous mode, and it's disabled. You would enable this mode if you want to charge a single battery out of both channels. Like if you, for example, have a really large battery and you would like to spend less time charging it, you can pretty much laser focus both channels into charging that battery so it charges faster. The continuous work option should regulate the behavior of the charger once it has finished a charging cycle, whether it will continue operating and charging the next battery that you basically connect or just stop. For this mode to work well, you need to make sure that the next battery you're about to charge has exactly the same specs as the previous one. The option Work Completed decides whether to completely stop the charging process after the sensor detects that the battery is full, or to sort of continue monitoring and charging the battery if there is a drop in charge or something in the battery. The option then called Battery Selection, I think it either displays or not the battery selection option in the first menu. I need to double check that. Then we have an option or options such as backlight, buzzer, and of course you can pretty much guess what they do. Then when it comes to language options, we got a really decent selection here. We have English, Dutch, French, Italian, Portuguese, Spanish, Chinese, Simplified Chinese, Traditional Chinese, Japanese, and Korean. So that's pretty nice. Next, in the theme option, there we can select pretty much use the dark or the light theme, like many browsers nowadays. Pretty nice. I personally like the dark one a lot. Finally, we will see an option to restore the default settings, and the last one there is a product ID. So now let's go ahead and wrap up. So in general, I think this is a really good balance charger. In my case, it does everything that I need, and it has the necessary power output to deal with small and large batteries. The navigation system was easy to navigate in my opinion, yet I would say that some of the options, the way they named them, seem to be rather unclear and confusing, and I didn't see much in the little instructions manual that I got. Perhaps there's another one, but in any case it didn't come with the box, so some of the options were rather confusing. The fact that you can fast charge USB Type-C devices is really handy, and also that it can be used as a constant power supply or source. That's pretty good as well. In general, I mean, it's not a revolutionary product or anything like that. I mean, there are so many nice balance chargers nowadays in the market, but it's certainly a good value for the money, and I think I can't really complain about anything really. Just really. So hopefully, I mean, you found this video interesting, and hopefully I cover everything that you wanted to know about this product. I will try to continue uploading quality reviews like this one, although it was more like an overview than a review, because pretty much I cover mostly the functionality and how to do things. But again, it's a very, I would say, basic product. It has some advanced functionality, but in general, it's just a basic balance charger. So I think you pretty much will get all the information you need from these videos. Okay, hopefully that you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button, and of course, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one. Hope to see you in the next one.